Drew, thank you so much for spending a few minutes with me. I appreciate your time. Uh, Very quickly, just a big fan of you, what you did in Gotham. So it was a pleasure to get to see you in this film and get to talk to you.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it very much. Yeah, I miss those Gotham days for sure.
Now, The Unbreakable Boy, I thought was such a touching and great film, and you play quite the unique character. Tell me a little bit about Joe, because he's imaginary.
He is. Yeah, it's a tough one because you hate to spoil it, but it happens pretty early in the movie, and frankly, it's not a huge deal. It's really it was a fun role to play. I talked to the real Scott Lorette about Joe, and he's like, yeah, when I was a kid, I always had this imaginary friend that I would talk to, and I'd be working on stuff and trying to work stuff out in my head, and I'd talk to this guy, and I guess his mother or somebody in his family said, who are you talking to? And so he decided to give it a name. So he's like, I'm just talking to Joe, and so I love that this imaginary friend was based on a real person's imaginary friend, if that makes any sense. And it's a sweet role to play because Joe is there in the hard times and he's there in the good times. He can be the angel on the shoulder or the devil. I thought John Gunn, who did such a magnificent job, the writer director of creating this character, and as kind of a way for Scott, played by Zach, to kind of to show the stuff that he's going through internally. So yeah, it was a real joy to play. We had it was the movie was crazy. Shot it in the middle of COVID in Oklahoma City, and so yeah, it was. It turned out to be in the midst of the madness, this really awesome experience.
Yeah, it's a really creative way to be able to just, yeah, like you said, get a better idea of what Scott's going through. And so how do you prepare to be an imaginary character? Do you just take it as a different persona? Do you try and kind of match, Scott's energy, but maybe like you said, a voice of reason versus maybe uh, a devil on his shoulder? How do you approach that?
Well, for me, it was more important that Joe was kind of his own character. I think a lot of times people will create an imaginary character as another persona, some like a part of them that they find hard to be themselves. And so, I wanted Joe to be this kind of like a buddy, like yeah, like he always kind of had this buddy here to bounce stuff off of, and I think we accomplished that in the film, and so it was. Yeah, I really treated him, as far as Joe is concerned, he wasn't imaginary. He was as real as anything else. So I kind of went that route with it.
Yeah, yeah, it's a very important character. With that in mind, how was it working with Zach Levi? Because you're working with him really close. Because obviously, all the scenes where you're in, he's in because you're talking with him and you're advising him, or you're asking him to take another drink, and vice versa.
Yeah, all of us, including the crew, we really bonded on that film, and most of us were staying in the same hotel, and so we couldn't really go out and do much because of COVID, so we would have jam sessions in the hotel or around the fire, and Peter Facinelli was famous for his hotel turkey. He would make a turkey in the little oven, or he actually bought a little oven at Walmart or Target or something, and so we just had a great time as a group, and in some kind of tricky circumstances otherwise. Yeah, that was a real plus for me, and a surprise because I didn't know most of these folks going into it. It's we still have a group text that we have going on called Unbreakable, and tap in with each other from time to time.
That's really good to hear. Now, you are the imaginary voice to a person who's battling his own demons, but is also a parent for with a child who is autistic, who has other physical limitations. And I don't think we see the plight that parents go through. I have a couple of friends who have children in similar situations, and I look up to them. I always give them my best just because of the fact of I know how much patience, how much strength, and how much energy it takes. What was your takeaway from this story, and how important you think is that audiences
Well, you said
get
it
to be part of it?
exactly. Yeah, 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 Manny, that's exactly right. And I have a similar situation. I have, relatives and friends, and I think you'd be hard pressed to find anyone who doesn't have some kind of connection to someone somewhere on the autism spectrum. And it is a spectrum, everything from, severely, unable to talk or do much to, an Asperger situation where you can still, get through the world in a normal way. That to me, when I talk to people about this film, and I've been talking about it for 4 years because we shot it in 2020, so 4.5 years. That to me though is the thing that I talk about most. And I'm like, you need to see this movie just for no other reason than to for the celebration of how hard it is to be a parent. And a parent in general, for sure, as I'm a parent myself, that's one of the things, that really has moved me about this, but also particularly of a parent of a special needs child and the patience and the time and the care that it takes. So I've got friends here in Los Angeles, actually, one friend in particular that she's like, I can't get through the trailer without crying, so I don't know how I'm going to survive the movie. But at the same time, really thankful that there is a movie out there that touches on this subject that so many of us, so many folks in the world experience. And so it was important, I know, to the filmmakers to make sure that we got a sign off from folks in the autism community, and my understanding is that they are been very supportive and really appreciate the movie. So that to me is like job one done. That's the most important thing. And I say to my other friends who are parents, not necessarily of special needs kids, but like there is a certain moment in the movie, and I'm not going to say it because I want people to experience it for themselves. But there's a moment as a dad in the movie that gets I've seen it a few times. It's been a while now, but I saw the cut a few times when it was being finished. That gets me every time. There's one specific moment, and so as a parent, I do think, and I tell all my, particularly my dude friends, I'm like, listen, if you don't cry in this movie, I will buy your ticket, and so I'll be interested to see. I bet you I don't have to buy many tickets. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I have a ton of empathy for Zach's character, and I think he did such a great job at displaying some of those moments where where he's breaking down because it's so hard. And me too, as a dad, and as a dad who's hoping to be a dad for a second time sometime soon, it really hits hard, and I think that it was very well done. How happy are you now, 4 years later, that the movie's finally getting released? I know you guys, like you said, you worked on it during COVID, and finally, 2025, we're getting to see this.
Yeah, man, that's Hollywood, isn't it? You never know what you're going to get when it comes to the projects you do. There's all these hurdles. The first hurdle is getting the job, and that's just as an actor, you feel blessed and excited to have any job, but particularly a job like this that is such a great experience. The second is completing it, which was a feat. I think we might have been the only movie that didn't get shut down with COVID. Like we in the miracle of it. This was before vaccines, so people have kind of forgotten, but that was a serious situation. So the fact that we got the movie done and got everything shot is the second hurdle, and then the third hurdle is getting it out to the world. This was has gone on a serious journey to get to theaters, and so that's why it's even more important to me to celebrate that and to me that's the beauty and the pain of this business. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right. The beauty and the pain of this business is that um, this beautiful movie that, I mean, for a minute I thought maybe it wasn't gonna see the light of day, and that broke my heart. Because Peter and John and I talk about this a lot, because Peter Facinelli was the guy that found this story and brought it to light, and then John kind of took it as a writer director. But we talk about how this is like the little movie that could, the kismet of this thing happening at all. So to get to where we are now is such a blessing, and I'm so excited for people to see it. Because you put your heart and soul into these things, especially movies like this. and it was the thought of it kind of collecting dust on a shelf somewhere just broke my heart. So this is a celebration for sure. I shot another movie with all these same group, Lionsgate Kingdom and John Gunn, called Ordinary Angels with Hilary Swank last year. We shot that long after this movie, and yet it came out a year ago. So things have come and gone, and the business has changed, and I've changed in 4 years. But it's nice to take a beat and celebrate this little sweet little film that we made all those years ago.
Yeah, I'm so glad everyone's going to get to see it. Definitely a blessing. I mean, COVID didn't stop you, and bureaucracy's not going to stop you. Here we are, and now everyone's going to get to watch
Yeah.
The Unbreakable Boy. Drew, thank you so much for your time. It meant a lot to me to get to talk to you for a few minutes, and I hope to catch you on the next project.
Thanks, Manny. All the best to you, brother.
Take care.